All right, so my topic today is well, first off, welcome to my room. Got some colorful peacocks, there's some Coke Zero signs, stuff like that. But my topic today is license renewal and continuing education. So, stuff that is important that we need to know. Um, and I have broken it down into the four ish hows for license renewal. So, those four hows are part one, how often must one renew their license? Part two, how much does it cost to renew a license? Part three, continuing education. That was the one I didn't know how to turn into a house, so it's ish. And part four, how does one find continuing education? So I'm going to go through the steps for Oregon, just because of time's sake, but my handout has it for both Oregon and Washington. So looking at part one, how often must one renew their license? So in Oregon, it's every 2 years on the even numbered years. And what will happen is the board is going to send you a letter telling you it's time to renew, and the letter will give you the whole process of what you need to do in it. You can renew in person, by mail, or online. The easiest way is just to go to the board's website, Oregon Board's website, and you're going to need the appropriate continuing education credits. And we're going to talk about that in part three. But before we get there, we got to do part two. How much does it cost? And we've heard lots about fees and different things like that. So in Oregon, according to OAR 83370, there's two ways you can get charged. One's with a background check and one without. And one without is $125. And the renewal with a background check is $172.25. So there goes some money. And looking at it, there's also a restoration fee. I'm not sure if that means it's a late fee or what, but it's $50. And Washington has a late fee that's about $50. So hopefully it's not just an added fee. Okay, so that's how much it costs, and that's how often you have to do it. Now I want to look at what is continuing education, moving into part three. So first off, looking at the requirements, and a lot of this is laid out in OAR 83380. So if you want to check that out, you can check it out there. But my outline also shows that. And so the requirements for Oregon are that the workshop needs to be intended for mental health professionals, and it needs to be on a topic that meets the needs of your client. So it has to be pertinent to us as counselors and pertinent to our clients. And for Oregon, you need 40 hours every 2 years. So every 2 years, 40 hours. Excuse me. 6 of which must be in ethics training. So I want to just define what an hour means quick. So an hour is 1 hour spent in a program meeting requirements for continuing education. And an hour does not include like refreshment breaks or receptions or other social gatherings and meals. So like in class, every time we're in class and someone's lecturing, that counts. But when we're on break, that doesn't count. There are some exceptions to the 40 hours in 2 years, and that's basically depending on when you got your first license. So if you got your license 12 to 23 months before the deadline, you only need 20. Makes sense, cut it in half. And if you got it in less than 12 months before the deadline of an even year, then you don't have to do anything for that section. You'll just have to start the following session or cycle. So the things that you're looking for, it was one, you need ethics training. We already talked about that. But in addition to ethics, the other areas that you're going to try and grow in are theory and techniques, human development, social and cultural foundations, helping relationship, group dynamics, lifestyle and career, DSM diagnosis assessment, research and evaluation, professional orientation and ethics, supervision training, disability and life transitions, substance abuse, psychopharmacology, or diagnosis of treatment and mental health disorders. So those would be anything that you could look at in addition to your ethics. And it's important once you do these that you get documentation, and that's going to include things like the number of hours awarded, the sponsor's name, the presenter's name, the dates, get a transcript if you do it at a school or things like that. Because what can happen is that the board will do audits every so often. And so the board will conduct an audit of the records of randomly selected licensees to verify actual participation, completion, and compliance with the standards that I just laid out. And if you don't, so let's say they do the audit and they find out that you haven't done all your hours, then you get penalized, and it's financially. So let's say you only did 31 to 39 hours, then you get fined 250. 21 to 30 hours, 500. 11 to 20 hours, 750. And if you've only done 10 or less, they're going to charge you $1,000. And it's important to know that you can't just pay the fines. Like, you can't say, well, I'm not going to get trained and I'm just going to pay the money. You still have to do the training, and you're just going to keep getting fined. And so the last thing that you need to know is that is that you can ask for a waiver. Let's say you have a medical illness, or you have a child, or you're not going to do practice for an extended amount of time. You can ask the board, and they'll just have to approve that. And that's just a written letter to the board. Now, the Oregon website has an amazing PowerPoint. You just go on and it says continue education credits made simple or something like that. And it has you answer a few questions. So I laid those out in the document, the handout that you have. And so I'm just going to read through those questions quick. Is the course intended for mental health professionals? Does the topic meet the needs of your clients? Does it fit in one or more of the content areas? Will the training be completed within your 2-year reporting period? Will the course last at least 1 year, or 1 hour, not 1 year, 1 hour? Is the sponsor a national or state mental health organization, a university, or a recognized training organization? We're going to look at that in part 4. Is the presenter of the workshop a mental health professional or have expertise in the content area? Is the location of training accessible to people with disabilities? And will you have documentation of the training? Again, it's really important that you get documentation of any training that you do in case you get audited. So I want to just look at some examples of content that does and doesn't meet requirements, just so we have some practical examples of what I'm talking about. So things that do meet the requirements would be like ADA training with counseling focus, ethics, clearly, diagnosis, teaching ethics, supervisor training, or hypnotherapy. Those would all be examples of things that would count towards continuing education credits. Now, some examples of content that does not meet requirements would be marketing, business practices, yoga, or any other self-help kind of thing like that, training for administrative purposes, public relations, statistical analysis for quality control, tracking systems, and training geared towards the general public. Remember, it has to be geared towards professionals and for clients' good. So that, in a nutshell, is an overview of what continuing credits look like. And clearly you can get fined, like I said, for not doing it. And so the big question then is, well, how do I find these? And it's actually really easy. All you have to do is, you can see a list of all the other of the institutions under how do I find continuing education. So, and those lists are just from the OIR website and the WAC website. And there's more of these. You could be a part of any other association that's accredited and just see what they do, and they will all have different activities. So all you have to do is go to their websites and look for workshops that interest you and sign up, or the ones that you need to have. And so since I have some time left, I'm just going to go through the differences quick for Washington. So Washington, Oregon, how often you need to renew? Oregon was every 2 years on the even-numbered years, right? So Washington is actually every year that you have to do it. It's on your birthday. So yeehaw, you get to pay a fee on your birthday. And in Washington, rather than having a board, it's all just run through the Washington State Department of Health. Another thing with Oregon is it costs a little more. It's a little confusing because the statute and the WAC it listed 2 prices, and I couldn't tell the difference. But they're in the packet either way. The only other difference that's really big to point out is that with Washington, instead of needing 40 hours, you only need 36 every 2 years, and 6 still need to be ethics, but you also need suicide training, assessment, and management, and that's every 6 years. So within 3 cycles of continuing education credits, you need to have 6 credits of suicide training, and that is included inside your 36. So whichever time you do it in, it counts. Maybe do 2, 2, 2. But that is the gist of what you need to do to renew your license and find continuing education. Hopefully you found this helpful. Bye.